Before we begin, take a moment, breathe. Ask yourself, when was the last time you truly questioned what you believe? Because this is not just a story, it's a journey through thought, through courage, through death itself. A story of a man who asked why until the world could no longer bear the answer. This is Socrates, the philosopher who drank truth to the last drop. And tonight, we will walk beside him into the heart of wisdom and the silence beyond. Before we start, if you believe that truth still matters, if you believe that questions can change the world, then like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us until the end. Because some voices never die. In the final days of Athens' fading glory, there walks an old man, barefoot, calm, his eyes fixed not on the earth, but on something far beyond it. His name is Socrates, a man who claimed to know nothing, and in doing so, unveiled the deepest truth of all. They say he wandered the agora, not to sell goods, nor to praise gods carved from marble, but to ask questions that unsettled the soul. He spoke not with anger, but with a stillness that pierced vanity. And every question he asked, what is justice? What is virtue? What is the good life? Spread like a quiet fire through the hearts of men. The unexamined life, he said, is not worth living. Apology, 38a. It was a whisper at first, a murmur among youths, a challenge to the wise, a threat to the powerful. But in that whisper, Athens trembled. Now, the city he loved, the very heart of philosophy, has turned against him. The same voices that once laughed at his irony now cry for his death. They accused him of impiety, of corrupting the youth, of introducing strange gods. But Socrates smiled. He said, if they could only see that truth is not a god to worship, but a light to awaken. He did not flee. He did not hide. He stood before his accusers as calm as the sea before dawn, ready to drink the poison that would end his mortal life and begin something far greater. In the shadow of that trial, he whispered again, not to the judges, nor to the crowd, but to eternity. Death may be the greatest of all human blessings. Apology, 40c. This is not the story of a man condemned. It is the story of a soul that refused to die. A story of questions that defied the silence of death. A journey through reason, doubt, and the sacred. Join me as we walk beside the barefoot philosopher through the streets of Athens and the corridors of the soul. This is Socrates, the Deathless Questioner, before the trial, before the hemlock, before his name became a monument carved in memory. There was a man who simply walked. He walked through the streets of Athens, a city glittering with marble and intellect, a cradle of democracy and debate, where words were sharper than swords. But for Socrates, Athens was more than a city. It was a living soul, restless, proud, and uncertain. And he, the old barefoot philosopher, became its mirror. He wandered without scrolls or coins, pausing by fountains, under olive trees, beside the sculptors and merchants. He spoke to everyone, the potter, the soldier, the poet, the courtesan. He asked questions that seemed simple, but revealed the cracks beneath certainty. Tell me, my friend, he would begin, what is courage and what is justice? Do we live as we think or think as we live? Many laughed at him. Some called him a fool, but others, especially the youth, were captivated. They saw not a man of wealth, nor a priest of gods, but a man who dared to doubt, and who found light in doubt itself. Socrates never wrote a single word. He claimed wisdom not from possession, but from the emptiness that allows truth to echo. I know that I know nothing, he said. Plato's Apology, 21. It was both confession and revelation, for in admitting ignorance he invited the universe to speak through him. He called it elenchus, the art of questioning, to strip the soul of falsehood, layer by layer, until only the naked truth remained. To him, philosophy was not a trade of words, but a purification of being. He believed that every man carried within him a seed of divinity, a spark of logos, the reason that governs the cosmos. To think deeply was not to separate oneself from the divine, but to approach it. Athens, however, was not always kind to thinkers. While the city adored eloquence and rhetoric, Socrates spoke in parables, paradoxes, and silence. He rejected the sophists, men who sold wisdom for coin and applause. To him, truth was sacred, something that could not be bought, only suffered for. Sometimes as he walked, children followed behind him, mocking his strange walk, his unkempt beard, his absent gaze fixed toward thought instead of things. And yet Socrates smiled. He said, "To be mocked for truth is better than to be praised for lies." He spoke often of the daimonion, a mysterious inner voice, a divine whisper that warned him whenever he was about to act wrongly. To some, it was madness. To Socrates, it was the voice of the soul in dialogue with eternity. "This sign I have had ever since I was a child," he told his accusers. "It always forbids, never commands." Apology 31 dice. Perhaps that voice was the reason he never left Athens. Even when offered wealth or safety elsewhere, he remained, bound not by law, but by love for truth and home. For Socrates, philosophy was not an escape from life. It was life itself. To eat, to walk, to argue was to practice philosophy. Each moment was an examination, each breath an invitation to understand. He once said, "The greatest way to live with honor in this world is to be what we pretend to be." Socrates, as remembered by Xenophon. These words, drifting through centuries, strike at the heart of modern existence. How often do we wear masks, speaking truths we do not live and living lives we do not question? Socrates tore those masks apart. He stood unclothed before reason, fragile, human, luminous. He taught that the soul, when neglected, decays. That injustice harms not its victims most, but its perpetrators. It is better to suffer wrong, he said, than to do wrong. Gorgias, 469 C. To him, virtue was not a theory, but harmony, a melody between thought, word, and deed. And so, each day, under the vast Athenian sky, he walked, questioning, listening, awakening. The agora became his classroom, the people his students, and the truth his only pursuit. He became the conscience of Athens. But conscience, Peter, is often an unwelcome guest in the house of comfort. His questions began to trouble the powerful, to unravel the fabric of illusion. He did not attack, he simply asked. And that was enough. Enough to expose hypocrisy, to disturb the peace of ignorance. By the time he grew old, his students had become men of influence. Plato, Xenophon, Alcibiades, each carrying fragments of his light, and yet each destined to witness his fall. For a society that values certainty cannot endure the man who worships doubt. And so Athens, brilliant yet brittle, prepared the chalice of poison. Still, Socrates continued walking, barefoot on sunburnt stone, his mind tracing the architecture of eternity. His eyes, clear as the sea, reflected not fear, but wonder. He once told his students, "Wonder is the beginning of wisdom." Theaetetus, 105. And truly, Peter, his life was nothing but wonder. Wonder at the soul, at justice, at the beauty of being human, and the mystery of death. This was Socrates before the storm, the teacher, the seeker, the midwife of truth, helping the world give birth to meaning. Soon, his questions would lead him not to enlightenment, but to judgment, and the city he served would mistake light for heresy. Thus begins the path from the streets of Athens to the cell of Hemlock. The day had come. The philosopher, once the quiet voice in the streets, now stood before the city that had once called him its conscience. Socrates, at 70 years old, entered the court of Athens barefoot, his robe worn and simple, his face calm, not of defiance, but of surrender to something greater than the law of men. more than 500 citizens sat in judgment. Not kings, not gods, ordinary men. Men shaped by fear, by pride, and by the whispers of accusation. The charges were threefold: corrupting the youth, denying the gods of the city, and introducing new divinities of his own mind. They accused him not of violence, nor of theft, but of thinking. They feared his questions more than any sword. For a question once asked cannot be unasked. It grows, it spreads, it burns illusions. Socrates stood before them, not as a victim, but as a mirror. His calm gaze swept across the sea of faces, some hostile, some uncertain, some silently mourning. "Men of Athens," he began, "I am accused of corrupting the youth, but if I make them think for themselves, is that corruption or awakening?" Plato's Apology, 26b. He spoke without manuscripts, without ornament. His words were the simple rhythm of truth. He said he had no wisdom, only love for wisdom, philosophia. He told them that his mission came from the god Apollo, who declared through the oracle of Delphi that no man was wiser than Socrates. And Socrates, ever the questioner, had gone to test the god's words. He searched among politicians, poets, and craftsmen. He found brilliance, but also vanity, knowledge, but without humility. "I am wiser than this man," he said, "for neither of us knows anything of great importance. But he thinks he knows while I know I do not." Apology, 21bd. His words pierced through the chamber, and yet many felt insulted. For Athens, proud, eloquent, democratic Athens, could not endure a man who stripped its illusions bare. He did not beg for pity. He did not soften his tone. He defended reason as if it were a god itself. A man who is good for anything should not calculate the chance of living or dying. He should only consider whether he is doing right or wrong. Apology, 28b. At that moment, Peter, Athens, was on trial, not Socrates. The question was not about one man's guilt, but about a city's soul. Would truth survive when comfort was easier to serve? Would reason endure when ignorance brought applause? Socrates' voice carried the calm of eternity. He reminded the judges that his role was divine, that his questioning was a duty, a call from the gods themselves to awaken men from spiritual sleep. "I am a gadfly," he said, "stirring the great horse of Athens to life." Apology, 30s. The crowd laughed. Some sneered, but there were those who felt the sting of his truth, who recognized the sacred irony in his humility. He was offered a chance to plead, to beg forgiveness, to promise silence, but silence was death to him long before poison could reach his veins. "If you offered to let me go on condition that I cease from questioning, I should reply, I shall obey the god rather than you." Apology, 29. His words unsettled them, for they were the kind that history never forgets, the kind that makes men see themselves clearly and tremble. He spoke of death not as punishment, but as possibility, as liberation from ignorance, as a return to truth beyond form. To fear death, he said, is nothing other than to think oneself wise when one is not, to think one knows what one does not. Apology, 29a. These words silenced the room. Even his enemies looked uneasy. He spoke of death as though it were a friend, a conversation he had long prepared for. After his defense, the vote was cast. 281 found him guilty. 220 voted for acquittal. It was close, closer than anyone had expected. But fate, like reason, has no mercy. And when the question of punishment arose, Socrates smiled. He suggested, half in jest, that he should be rewarded, not punished, for his service to Athens. What is a just reward for a man who has never ceased to serve the city? Free meals for life, perhaps, in the Prytaneum. Apology, 36. They thought him arrogant, but in truth, he was speaking to the gods, not to them. He knew that what they called punishment was, to him, purification. When the final sentence came, death by hemlock, he did not tremble. He looked at the jurors and said gently, "You too must be of good cheer, for death is either a dreamless sleep or a passage to another world." Apology, Poetic outside, the sun of Athens burned bright upon marble. Life went on, as it always does when truth is silenced. But among his disciples, a deeper light began to glow, a seed of something immortal. Plato, his student, watched in awe, for in that silence, he heard the voice of philosophy being reborn. Socrates' trial was not the end. It was the beginning of a conversation that would never end, a conversation between doubt and faith, between the finite and the eternal. And perhaps that is why his calm before the sentence felt like prayer. He knew that truth cannot die, that death, when embraced with clarity, becomes the last lesson. That day, the court dismissed. The citizens returned home. Athens went to sleep, believing it had silenced a man. But in truth, it had awakened the world. The court had fallen silent. The voices that once shouted judgment were now gone. Only the stillness of a prison cell remained. Socrates sat alone, a small cup beside him, a dim torch flickering against the cold stone. The man condemned was the calmest in the room. Plato, Crito, Apollodorus, his students, entered quietly, their eyes swollen with grief, their hearts torn between love and disbelief. For how could a man so wise, so gentle, be left to die by his own city? Yet Socrates smiled, not the smile of resignation, but of one who has long prepared for this moment. "My dear Crito," he said, "why do you sit there in silence? Has the hour not come for us to speak of what truly matters?" Crito 43a. The dialogue began, not of law or revenge, but of justice, of virtue, of what it means to live rightly, even in the shadow of death. Crito, trembling, pleaded, "There is still time to escape. Gold has been arranged. The guards can be bribed. You can flee to Thessaly, to safety." Socrates listened quietly, his gaze steady, his tone kind. "Would escaping make me just Crito, or would it only show that I fear death more than I love the truth?" Crito 48b. The disciples wept, unable to answer. They wanted their teacher to live, but Socrates wanted something greater, for the truth to live through him. He reminded them, laws are not merely written words. They are the harmony of the city's soul. To break them, even when wronged, is to wound the music of justice itself. He spoke of the good life, not one of pleasure, but of virtue and reason. He said that a man must never return wrong for wrong. That vengeance poisons the heart faster than hemlock itself. A man must live so that his soul may remain uncorrupted. It is not life, but the good life, that is to be valued. Crito 48b. Outside, the sun descended behind the Acropolis. Athens glittered like gold in the last light. Inside, time itself seemed to slow. Every breath in that cell felt like the pause between life and eternity. Socrates then turned his gaze to the small opening of the cell, where the fading light touched his face. He spoke of the soul, its immortality, its journey beyond the body, its endless thirst for truth. The body keeps us busy with food, drink, and lust. But when freed from it, the soul will behold truth in its purest light. Phaedo 66b, he called death a purification, not an end, but a return. For to a philosopher, life itself was a preparation for death, a practice of letting go. True philosophers are ever studying to die, he said, and to them, death is least terrible. Phaedo 67. The disciples were silent. Their tears reflected the torchlight, their hearts torn between reverence and sorrow. They asked him if he feared nothing, if there was truly no dread in his heart. Socrates smiled again, faintly. He said, "To fear death, my friends, is to think one knows what one does not. Death may be the greatest blessing." Apology 40c. He spoke then of the afterlife, not as a dogma, but as a vision, a place where the soul, freed from all illusions, could converse with truth itself. There, I shall question Orpheus and Hesiod, and learn from the wise who have gone before me. Apology 41a. The disciples leaned closer, listening not to a man facing death, but to one already beyond it. Crito, still trembling, whispered, "Master, What would you have us do when you are gone?" Socrates turned to him, and in that gaze was serenity beyond all words. "Care first for your souls, not your bodies. Make yourselves as good as you can be, for virtue is not given, it is cultivated." Crito 48c. The conversation lingered until midnight. They spoke of courage, of virtue, of how wisdom begins in recognizing one's ignorance. He told them that philosophy is not escape, but engagement with truth, that reason and goodness are one, and that the examined life is the only life worth living. When at last the guards entered, the torchlight dimmed, the silence deepened, and the disciples fell to their knees. Socrates rose slowly, his movements calm and deliberate. He embraced each of his students. He thanked them, not for their loyalty, but for their courage to question. And then, turning to Plato, he said softly, "Remember, my dear friend, philosophy is not words, but deeds. When I'm gone, let your soul continue the dialogue." The prison fell quiet once more. No screams, no protests, only the echo of a truth too deep for fear to touch. Outside, the first birds of dawn began to sing. Inside, Socrates closed his eyes, not to rest, but to awaken. The dawn had come, pale, tender, merciless. In the cold light of early morning, Athens seemed at peace. Yet behind the thick stone walls of the prison, a quiet storm was unfolding. Socrates sat cross-legged upon the stone bench, his hands resting gently upon his knees, as though already beyond the reach of pain or time. His disciples gathered for the final time, Plato, his pen trembling, Crito, his eyes hollow with sorrow, Apollodorus, weeping openly, his tears falling like small offerings at the philosopher's feet. No one dared to speak at first. The silence itself felt sacred, a space too fragile to break. The guard appeared, his face grey and solemn. He carried the cup. It was simple, unadorned, filled with the bitter drink of hemlock. No ceremony, no judgment, just the inevitable, waiting to be accepted. The jailer looked at Socrates, then turned away in grief. He had watched many men die, but never one so calm. "You, Socrates," he whispered, "are the noblest man who has ever entered this place. Farewell." Socrates looked at his friends, those who had followed him through questions, arguments, laughter. He smiled faintly. "How strange," he said softly, "that death should make men weep, when it may be nothing but a journey home." He asked the jailer how to proceed. The man instructed him to walk until his legs grew heavy, and then to lie down. The poison would soon numb his body, but not his mind. Socrates took the cup with steady hands. Not a tremor, not a flicker of doubt. He turned to his disciples, their faces blurred by tears, their breaths shallow and ragged. He spoke gently, his voice like warm air before rain. "My friends, no evil can happen to a good man, either in life or after death." Apology 41. He raised the cup. He looked at the liquid, not with fear, but with curiosity, as if even now he sought to understand its nature. "I drink this not in despair," he said, "but in obedience to the law, and in peace with myself." He drank it, slowly, completely. Apollodorus cried out, unable to bear it. Crito turned away, hiding his face. Even Plato, the ever-calm observer, could not write without shaking. But Socrates, he sat down once more. He rubbed his legs gently, feeling the cold rise from his feet upward, as though life were retreating from the body, returning to its source. He described the sensations calmly, like a scientist of the soul observing its departure. "When the poison reaches the heart," he murmured, "it will be over." The guard checked him. Socrates moved no more. He lay still, his face serene, his lips barely parted as if mid-thought. Plato would later write that Socrates died beautifully, not with violence, but with peace, the peace of one who has already crossed the threshold of understanding. And so, the man who spent his life asking questions faced the final one in silence. No monuments were built for him. No statues at first bore his likeness. But his death became a compass, a quiet revolution that outlived every tyrant, every fleeting truth of the age. His disciples left the prison that day not in despair, but in awe. They had witnessed something far greater than death, the triumph of the examined soul. Death is not the end of wisdom, Plato would later write, but its completion. The torchlight of Athens dimmed that night, but the flame of philosophy burned ever brighter. From that silence, a new age began, an age of reason, of dialogue, of the human spirit unafraid to ask, what is the good life? He drank the hemlock, and in doing so, taught the world that truth cannot die. The cell is empty now, only the faint echo of footsteps remains. And the cup, lying on the cold stone floor, its silence louder than any sermon. Athens wakes, the city unchanged and yet never the same again. Men return to their markets, to their debates, to their illusions. But something has shifted. A new light has entered the human mind. For Socrates did not die. His body faded, yes, but his voice, his question, it still lingers. The unexamined life, he once said, is not worth living. Apology 38a. Those words became immortal. They leapt from parchment to heart, from heart to century, from century to civilization. Every thinker who ever doubted, every dreamer who ever wondered, every rebel who ever questioned authority, they all carry a fragment of him. He had no riches, no temple, no crown, and yet he became the measure of wisdom, not by claiming to know, but by embracing the vastness of what cannot be known. As the centuries passed, his spirit found refuge in new minds, Plato's dialogues, Aristotle's logic, Marcus Aurelius' calm, and even the quiet rebellion of the modern soul who dares to think for itself. Each question asked in honesty is a prayer to his memory. Each truth discovered is a resurrection of his voice. Let us think of Socrates, wrote Cicero, as the father of philosophy, the man who called the gods of the mind into being. He taught us that wisdom is not in answers, but in the courage to seek them. He taught us that morality begins when a man dares to question himself. He taught us that death for the philosopher is not an end, but a release. Perhaps he was not meant to survive his city. Perhaps the world needed his death to remember what truth demands. For truth is never gentle, but it is always pure. It strips away comfort, it dissolves illusion, and it leaves us standing naked before ourselves, not in shame, but in clarity. Even now, when we question what is just, when we debate what is good, when we search for meaning in this age of noise, we are continuing his dialogue. To find yourself, think for yourself, Socrates. And so, the hemlock was not a death, it was a beginning, a quiet ignition of thought, of soul, of courage. From that dim prison in Athens, a light spread that would never dim, a light that reached the libraries of Alexandria, the monasteries of Europe, the classrooms of the modern world, and perhaps even here, in the glow of your screen, in the quiet moment you chose to listen. He is still asking us questions, still urging us to think, to know ourselves, to seek what is true even when the world demands silence. Socrates never wrote a single word, and yet his silence became the loudest book ever spoken. When you remember Socrates, the voice of the wind seems to say, remember not how he died, but how he lived, free, questioning, awake. And so, his voice fades, but not from the world, not from the soul of those who still dare to think. Socrates left us no writings, no monument, no temple, only questions, and the courage to face them. He reminds us that truth is not something you find, it's something you live. So, if this journey touched you, if these questions still echo within, leave a like, subscribe, and join our voyage through the great minds of history. Because every story we tell is a search for light in the darkness. This is English Stories Voyage, where words awaken souls.